Welcome, welcome to the Talent Empowerment Podcast, and thanks for tuning in. We're here to help you discover your purpose, step up your game at work, and live your happiest life possible. We're going to unpack the tools and tactics of successful humans to guide you towards your own purpose and empower your career. I'm your host, Tom Finn, and on the show today, we have Randy Crane. Randy, welcome to the show.
Tom, thank you so much for having me on this show. It's an honor to be here with you.
Oh man, it's an honor to have you on the show. For those of you that don't know, Randy's dialing in from north of Toronto, and I have not yet met a person from Canada that I didn't admire and respect. So this is going to be a good show today. And if you don't know Randy, let me take a moment just to introduce him to you. He is known as the Fearless Marketer and is nationally recognized sales and marketing specialist. He held leadership positions in sales and marketing for over 40 years with global brands such as Molson Coors and Conoco Minolta, among others, as well as many thriving startups. Randy shares his passion for leadership and marketing strategies that deliver customer value and business impact. Okay, Fearless Marketer, let's jump right into it.
Let's go.
What is emotion-based marketing and why should we care?
Okay. Emotion-based marketing. It's interesting because, we go through our lives and, I remember, Tom, I'm sure you remember this too. When you were young, your dad would say to you, Tom, you got to make logical decisions. Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to work hard, make logical decisions,
Right.
do good to others. They're all those things. Yeah.
And all those good things. Yeah. And my father said the same thing to me. And I'm sure most people in your audience, they can identify with that as well. The problem is human beings are not capable of making logical decisions. We make emotional decisions and then logic comes after. And let me just prove that out for a second. I remember when I was about 18 years old, I went to the store. I had saved up my money to buy this new set of speakers for my super duper stereo system. And I went to the store and I was so excited to get these speakers. So I went there and I paid the money and I brought them home. Hooked them all up. Everything was going great. Then I looked at the receipt. And I saw how much money I had spent on these. And then the logic started kicking in. Geez, you know what? I got to pay the rent. Oh my God, you know what? What have I done here? Okay. Before I knew it, I had those speakers back in the box and I was on my way back to the Best Buy to get my money back. Humans don't make logical decisions. First, they make emotional decisions. First. That's the most important thing to remember. And when we were talking before, we were talking about, sales and how sales and marketing kind of mesh together in this. When you turn around and you're a sales rep and you go to meet a client, and the way I was always taught back in the 80s to sell was you sell the features of the company.
Sure.
We've been in business for 20 years. We have the best service, we have the best company, we have the best people, the best prices, the best guarantee, the best delivery, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing emotionally connected to any of those things. They might be nice to know, but they're not going to inspire someone to buy from you.
Okay. So what is going to inspire someone to buy from us?
Being able to tap into the emotions that people feel before they buy and the feelings of relief they feel after they buy. You see, this with companies like Nike. Nike is a masterclass of emotional marketing. I mean, they spend so much on their marketing message that it's no wonder that they're an icon when it comes to emotional marketing. They get involved in social disruptions. They support certain organizations, and even though they get backlash from other consumers, they still stay with it. And you see, People buy Nike for the emotion of buying. Okay, it's an emotional buy. There's the same reason that back in the 80s we used to have, and you may not remember this, but in the 80s we had magazines at the checkout counter. You know, the TV Guide would be there, the National, the um, National Enquirer. Do you remember those?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, of course.
You'd never find them on the magazine rack. Where would you find them? You find them at the checkout counter. Why? Because it's an emotional buy. Okay, it's what they call impulsive buying. Impulses that are made through your emotions. I look at the cover and I think, oh my God, I just learned about, you know, Queen Elizabeth or whatever, you know, whatever it is on the front cover. It's, oh, well, I want to read that. So that goes on your list, right? So people buy because of the emotions that they drive. Now, the biggest question comes is that how do I know what emotions drive a sale? And that's a great question. You may not know the emotions that drive a sale, but every human being in the world have two things in common. The first thing is they want to be happy.
Yep.
Okay. Now there's a caveat to that because some people are happy in their own misery. Okay.
Not our listeners, but yeah, no, I get it. There's a group.
Yeah,
There's a group out there that are probably a little short-sighted and feeling
absolutely.
like misery is the best company, which unfortunately is not the right path forward. But totally get it. There's a group out there that falls into that category.
And the second category is interesting. Every human being in the world is emotionally connected to their own problems. Everyone. Mm-hmm. Every single person. Okay? You got a problem, you're emotionally connected to it. Okay? Now, whatever your product or service solves, you answer that question. You've got that problem. If it answers that problem, now we know. Okay? You have a product that, and I guess we can use a piece of software. I may be looking for a databasing. And you know what? I need a database software because I need databasing done. So a salesman comes to me and he says to me, well, yeah, we do databasing, but it can also do this and this and this and this and this. I don't care about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Can it do databasing really, really, really well? And if it doesn't, then it doesn't solve my problem. We're in the business of solving problems when you're selling. When you're in marketing, you're in the business of solving problems for your customers. Your customers are emotionally connected to their problems. Okay? Now you show me a piece of software that will do exactly what I need it to do. I don't care about all the other things. Those are all perks. But it can do what you say it can do. I'm buying it. Okay? Because it solves that problem. Now, the emotions that I feel before I buy are what you want to trigger when you're talking to the customer. How would you feel if you had this? How would that make you feel? Okay, if you were able to solve this problem. It's those feelings. And what I want to do is I want to trigger those in your brain. I want to trigger those in your brain. I want to say, oh, you know what? Well, it would make me feel great. Well, what kind of great? Like, I mean, would you be over the top? Yeah, I'd be way over the top. Well, now you know what the feeling's going to be after he buys. So what is it going to take to connect that person?
Okay, I get it.
And that's what marketing is all about. It's connecting the person to the emotion of buying.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you break out these questions of how would you feel in a way that's authentic and doesn't feel salesy? Because nobody wants to feel salesy. Even salespeople don't like to feel salesy, right? It makes you uncomfortable. You feel icky, right? We've all been in those sales conversations where we feel icky. How do we do this in a natural way?
You know, It's interesting too. You know, it was I was I was at a conference back in the '90s one time, and I got to see Zig Ziglar. Maybe it was the '80s. Yeah, I think it was the '90s. Anyway, Zig said that everybody in the world wants to buy, but nobody wants to be sold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And no, you know, selling somebody is a dirty experience. It really is. It's a dirty experience. You know, and this is what comes back to what I said earlier. You know, well, here, this is our company, and this is our people, and this is our product, and this is our service, and blah blah blah. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. They're nice to know, but it's not going to inspire somebody to buy from you. So, what is going to inspire someone to buy? Well, it's going to be a feeling. So, what is that feeling? Well, I don't know. So, the only way for me to find out is to start asking you questions. Okay? Tom, how would you feel if this happened? Tom, if we could show you a product that could do this, how would that make you feel? Tom, if this product had the ability of doing that, how would that change your life? And you see, once you start doing that, you start making notes. You can start realizing what the common denominators here are. And you know what? If you have a good enough relationship built with your customer, it's going to make a huge difference to how he answers those questions. So usually when I get sit down with a prospect, I'll turn around and say, hey, listen, you know what, Tom? You know, you asked me about, you know, where I live, and I asked you about where you live, and I told you how about when I lived in California, and blah, 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 blah. We broke the ice a little bit, made things easy. Now we want to get down to business. I want to ask you some specific questions. And when I ask those questions, and if I can't figure it out, I'll just ask you more questions. Okay? And just keep asking questions until you get that feeling. And it's kind of weird, you know. Tom, do you play golf?
I do.
Okay. You know when you get that, you hit that ball in the sweet spot,
Mm-hmm.
and that twang just goes right through your body. Well, it's the same thing on a sales call. You know, as soon as you get that feeling that you're on the same vibration as that customer, it just automatically you start to feel right. Now you can show him the product that you've got and how his life is going to change as a result of it. It's the feelings that cause us to make decisions. And, you know, it was interesting because there's a great book by Simon Sinek, and it's called Start With Why. If your audience hasn't read it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Pretty famous book, Randy. Yeah, Start With Why is pretty widespread.
Oh yeah. Have you read the book?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? He goes into detail about, you know, how the brain, you know, the limbic brain is your emotional brain, but you know what? We talk to, you know, the frontal cortex and how it doesn't understand. It's like talking to two different people. This is why your emotions are so important, because when you start building emotional based selling, emotional based marketing, okay, you're going to find that things start to change. Okay. There's nothing wrong with being empathetic, compassionate, and sympathetic in every day of your life. And I happen to grow up in a household where, you know, men were men, okay, and women were emotional creatures. And in actual fact, you know what? That's not true. Men are emotional creatures as well.
Yep.
Okay, and it's the emotions that drive our decisions, nothing more.
So emotional-based marketing can be summed up by saying, how would you feel knowing that everybody wants to buy, and how would that change your life if your problem was solved? And what I think I heard you say is you start with some questioning to really understand what the problem is. You
Yeah.
start to understand what their feelings of that problem are. And then you can go into, okay, now that I understand your problem and your feelings, here are some things that we can help to solve your problem and get your feelings on the right track, building back to happiness and solving that problem.
You know what? And it's funny because people find it uncomfortable. I've had clients that find it uncomfortable as well. I'll sit there and I'll say, well, geez, you got this problem. Yeah. Well, how does that make you feel? Well, it makes me feel lousy. Really? How lousy? Like lousy is a feeling, but it's not really an emotion. And they'll say, well, it's horrible. My life is terrible because of this. Okay. And you see, once you start ironing that down, everything you do on that side of the sales call, when you've got the solution, and what that feeling is like, it comes back to, in the end, when it comes time to, and I hate the word close, but I'll use it for lack of a better term, but you turn around and you say, okay, you ready to buy? Well, I need to think about it. Well, what do you need to think about? Did you not tell me that it made you feel this way? Yeah. Did you not tell me it made you feel that way? Yeah. Did you not tell me that your life would be changed if we did this? Yeah. Well, then what are you waiting for? You want to suffer another day? Okay. And I'm not saying that you say verbatim what I'm saying. And what I am saying to you is that that's the mentality you want to work with. Okay. Just going in and showing a product because you have a job that says go out and sell this product isn't going to handle it. Now, it might have 20 or 30 years ago, maybe. You know what? I didn't find it work that great back then either. But the whole idea of, back in the 80s, they used to say FAB, features, advantages, benefits.
Yep.
Okay. And ABC, always be closing. Okay. Horrible, horrible ideas. Okay. Just terrible. And you need to be able to connect with your customer. Okay. Your service to him is to find a solution to his problem. I was watching a thing with Russell Brunson, and I can't remember who said it, but it was on a podcast with him. And there was a whole misconception about, entrepreneurs. Everybody uses that word entrepreneur. It's like a key word these days, buzzword. Okay.
Yep.
And they turned around and Russell Brunson turned around and he said, everybody's got this wrong idea. An entrepreneur is not a guy who's in business. Okay. An entrepreneur is a person who, let me see if I get this straight. He identifies a customer's problem or identifies a person's problem and makes it their own. So a great salesperson is an entrepreneur. A great marketer is an entrepreneur. You find a person who's got a problem and you answer that problem. That is what an entrepreneur is. Okay. To me, solving problems is what we do. Whether you're a marketer, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a business owner, the whole idea of, well, I got into business to make a profit. Okay. And, I've talked with a lot of business people over the years, like tons. And I can tell you, and being in business myself for over 30 years, I can tell you the reason I got into business is not the reason I stay in business. Okay. I probably got into the business because I figured I could make more money. Okay. Once I realized that wasn't going to work out too well, I changed pitches. And today I'm in it for the customers. Okay. I love working with people. And you got to love what you do, Tom.
Yeah, I agree, Randy. You got to absolutely love what you do. You've got to do things that drive your own purpose.
Oh
So
yeah.
why did you originally get into sales? Where did that story start, and why was this a career path for you?
You know what? I've asked myself that a dozen times, and I've come up with it. I oddly enough, I change the story all the time, but it still comes down to the same thing. My father was a salesman, okay, and he was a tool salesman. So I used to go out with him during the summers and on weekends, and he would go around to car mechanics and bike gangs and places like that to sell his tools. And it was kind of interesting because um, his customers just loved him. Like he would go there, and a guy would say, "Well, you know what, Tom?" He said, "I don't have I can't afford this ratchet." So my dad would say, "Okay, no problem. Here, I'll give it to you now. Pay me in 2 weeks when you get paid." And he would do stuff like that. My father died in 1979, and when he died, all his customers came to the funeral.
Really?
All his customers came to the funeral, and it was crazy how many people came. But my father was a very beloved person, so I learned that my dad was always do for others. Okay, you know what? Don't worry. He used to get his hand slapped at work all the time because they'd say to him, "You know what are you giving that guy credit for?" Okay, so my dad was always a very compassionate, empathetic person. So I kind of learned that from him. When I got out into the workforce, I went to after college. I got to work with a company that was a subdivision of Goldman Sachs. So I figured I was going to be a stockbroker, and I figured that's a great place to start. And I did well at it. But I remember the first few months, and it's funny. I tell this story because it's really kind of weird. Um, when they hired us, they hired people at like, I don't know, I think it was like $5 an hour, maybe less. And it was like minimum wage at the time. And they would put you in this room, and there'd be a guy up at the front of the room, and he would be sitting there on the phone, like on his hand phone. And he'd say, "Oh, hello, Mr. Jones. Yeah, my name is Wayne from Goldman Sachs, and this is what we do." And he would just talk to nobody because obviously nobody on the phone. But and he would answer objections and do this type of thing. And then the bell would ring at 10 o'clock, and then everybody have to go to the desk. And when you get to your desk, there is a page out of the white pages sitting on your desk, a magic marker so you can write off the names, and there's a rotary dial phone. Now, you're probably too young to remember a rotary dial phone, but these things here were made out of steel, and you dial the number like this.
Yeah, you
Okay?
put your finger in the hole and dial it all the way around the
That's
circle.
right.
And
That's right.
and and for those of you listening that were not around for the white pages, that was a book, a paperback book of names first and last, and a direct phone number to a landline that you could call. So when Randy says white pages, magic marker, rotary phone, I think we got all three of those now lined up. All right, Randy, back to you.
There you go. So, anyways, there was this guy who walked around the floor, and he would say, "Get on the phone. Get on the phone. You're not making commission sitting on the phone when you're not on the phone." And of course, it would just be upsetting because we were all new people at the time. So after about a week or so of this, I finally get this little old lady on the phone, and I still remember her voice. Just a wonderful lady. And I gave her my pitch, and she said, "Oh dear, no." She says, "I just couldn't afford to make an investment right now." I said, "No problem, dear. You know what? You just go and have a great day." I get off the phone, and this guy comes over and he goes, "Why didn't you close her? You should have hammered her." And I'm thinking, she couldn't afford it. You should have closed her anyway. Some commission is better than no commission. And I kept thinking, and this kind of went on for like 3 months of this. And I'm really hating this guy. Like, I mean, really, nothing will drain you faster than working with people you can't stand. It just drains the life right out of you. So about 4 months comes along, and I'm on the phone with this guy, and we're talking. He's telling me about his family. He's telling me about his wife and his kids. And the guy keeps coming. The guy who's on the floor, he keeps coming over. He's going like this, with his watch. I'm spending too much time with this guy. And we kept talking. He's telling me about his business. And I closed the guy for $150,000 investment.
Nice.
So I got off the phone, and the floor manager comes over. He says, "Hey, good work. How did you close him? Did you use this close or that close? Did you hammer him hard?" I said, "No, man. I listened to him. I listened to him talk. We talked about his business. We talked about his family, his friends. Okay. And I learned then that it was a sympathetic ear that makes the difference. And that guy, I don't know whatever happened to him, but I realized at that point, I'd been trying it your way for like months and got nothing. I was going to do it my way. And once I started going down that path of trying to tap into people's emotions, how are you feeling? And you know what? And when you ask that question, some people will say, "Well, what do you mean by that?" I mean, maybe you have to just, elaborate. Listen, I'm just really kind of interested. How are you feeling? You feel good today? Well, yeah. Do you have a problem I can solve? And you know what? When you ask that question, you'll be surprised at the answers you get. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And so that's really my point, is that you're not going to, after spending a few minutes with you, Tom, I know a little bit more about you because we were asking questions back and forth. That's how we learn. This is how we learn. And, don't be afraid to fail. Failing is a good thing.
Yeah, there is no such thing as failure. There's just learning. If you look at it the right way, you're 100% right, Randy. And I love the way you're talking about sales. It really is trying to understand your customer with an empathetic ear and
Oh, yeah.
solve their problem.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Look,
it.
every business person in the world has the same problem, Tom. They all got problems. Now, the question comes is, can you solve that problem? Or can you solve a problem? And, like I said, and I've said this to people, I don't know whether I can solve your problem, but tell me what your problems are. And then let me see what I can do about it. But if I can help you solve one problem, wouldn't it be worth 5 minutes of your time? Well, yeah, it would be. Well, great. Let's talk. And more times than not, you'll be in line to make a sale. But what's the worst that can happen? You made a friend. Okay? And you know what? I built a career out of making friends. I like people. And you can't be in sales if you don't like people. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, the other alternative way to do it is you show up to a discussion, whether it's virtual, on the phone, video, what have you, in person, doesn't matter. But you show up and you just start talking about yourself and your product and how the pants are going to fit and how the elastic waistband is perfect and the drawstring is made of a particular material and it comes in 17 different shades of colors and it comes in 42 different sizes and if you do that, you can talk for as long as they can stand there and listen to you. But the problem is you haven't figured out what their issue is. Do they even need pants? Do they need them in 17 different colors? And if you ask questions first, as Randy said, you're likely to find that maybe they need a shirt or a pair of gloves or running shoes. And so I love the way that you've explained this in such a simple, straightforward, effective way. And you call it emotion-based marketing.
I do. And, it's funny, and we see this all the time, you ever walk into a store and sales rep comes up to you and he says to you, "Can I help you?" What do you say?
I'm looking around.
That's right. "No, thanks. I'm just looking." And what does the sales guy do? "Oh, okay." He walks away.
Yeah, if you need anything, I'll be over there.
Yeah,
Right.
trust me, I'm not going to need anything. I mean, because the sales rep hasn't done his part. Where if he had turned around, and I did um, back in early 2000, I got invited to go to a store. I don't want to say the store, but it was a small chain of stores, and they wanted me to train their salespeople, and they were selling women's clothing. Now, understand something. I'm not a retail guy. Okay, I know almost zero about women's clothing. So women would come in, and I joined their sales team for about 5 days, and everybody would do the same thing. Can I help you? No, I'm just looking. Okay, thank you very much. Call me if you need me. Blah blah blah. So I would go over and I would say, "Hi, how you doing?" And she'd say, "Fine." Are you looking for something specific? No, I'm just looking. You know what? Would you be interested in having a look at something that I think would look amazing on you?
The
And then
answer's
she
got
would
to be
say,
yes. I mean,
the
sure.
answer's got to be yes, right? You don't,
Yeah.
a lawyer once told me, he said, never ask a question if you don't know what the answer is going to be. So that being said, I would say, I have something here that I think you'd look great in. Have you got a second to have a quick look? If it's not for you, no problem. And so I'd take her over to the rack and I'd show her the clothes. And sometimes they'd say, oh, I want to try that on. And some people would say, no, 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 that's not really for me. I'd say, okay, well, what is for you? Well, I mean, you obviously came in here for a reason. What is it? Well, I'm interested in buying a new top. I need a new bra. I mean, whatever, whatever it was. But you see, I've opened up the dialogue. And of course, the sales reps would turn around and say, well, I can't say that. How can I say that? Well, what are you being paid to do? You want to connect with these people on an emotional level. So it doesn't matter whether you're working for Walmart or you're working for a grocery store, or you're working for Microsoft in sales. It doesn't matter. The rules still stay the same. You have to emotionally connect with the people that you are talking to. If you can't emotionally connect with them, maybe you should be flipping burgers at McDonald's.
Well, I think we can leave it there, Randy. You've hit the nail on the head and really simplified this sales process down to some very easy steps for people to follow, no matter what industry that you're in. So I appreciate you being on the show today. I think we covered it in depth in a very straightforward way. And appreciate you sharing this information on emotion-based marketing and sales. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, get in contact, how would they go about doing that?
You know what? The best way to reach me would be through email at randy@fearlessmarketer.com. And just in case anybody's aware, you know what? I answer all my emails personally.
Yeah,
Okay.
love it.
So if you have problems or questions or concerns about your business or your job, whatever it is, doesn't matter. If you just want to call me and say hi, that's fine. I do answer all my emails.
Yeah, wonderful. So we'll get that in the show notes. You can also find Randy on a ton of different social channels, including LinkedIn. We'll put that in the show notes so that you can get in touch with him. Randy, thank you again for being on the show.
Tom, it's been a pleasure to be with you. And listen, man, I would love to come back for another episode.
Oh, I love it. There's far more that we can unpack when it comes to sales. So thank you for that.
You
And
bet.
thank you for being a part of the Talent Empowerment Revolution. You're already on your way to career success, and we hope you're feeling inspired after our conversation today. Get ready to dive back into all things career on the next episode. We'll see you then.